Eleanor and Samuel Harper lived in a cozy old farmhouse surrounded by maples and wildflower beds. Morning light filtered through the kitchen windows as Eleanor, her gray hair tied in a neat bun, poured coffee into Samuel's favorite mug. "A happy anniversary, my love," Samuel said with a warm smile, his weathered hand sliding a small box across the oak table. 50 years together, and he still looked at her like she hung the stars. Eleanor opened it to find a hand-carved wooden brooch. "You made this?" she asked, tracing the delicate etching of intertwined lilies. "Worked on it for weeks in the shed. Thought it'd go with your Sunday dress." Eleanor pinned it to her sweater, eyes misting. "It's perfect." Despite their billionaire fortune, the Harpers lived simply. Their wealth stemmed from Samuel's groundbreaking solar panel technology, invented in his garage decades ago. Eleanor, with her sharp business mind, turned it into Harper Green Innovations, now a global corporation. "Our Lucas has his graduation next weekend," Eleanor said, sipping coffee. "Already 18, hard to believe." Samuel nodded, crow's feet crinkling. "Our first grandson finishing high school. What should we get him?" "Been thinking about that. He's always loved your pocket watch, the one your dad gave you." Samuel pulled the antique watch from his pocket. Its gold had worn thin, the chain showing its age. "This old thing barely keeps time anymore. What if we restored it, maybe added something special for his graduation?" Eleanor's face lit up. "Like what? Something he could pass down someday? Maybe a custom engraving on the case or a meaningful gemstone inlay?" They spent the morning brainstorming. Lucas was headed to college for engineering, following his grandfather's footsteps. He'd grown up at Samuel's side in the workshop, soaking in stories and learning to build with his hands. Samuel suggested a high-end jewelry store downtown, that one with the fancy name. "Exquisite Gems," Eleanor corrected with a grin. "Not fancy, dear. They do custom work. Saw it in the paper." Eleanor nodded. "We could go today. I need to drop off that check for the children's hospital anyway." They rarely drove their luxury cars. Samuel preferred his old pickup. Eleanor, her modest sedan. Their home, though comfortable, wasn't a mansion. They saw no point in extravagance. After breakfast, Eleanor changed into her favorite sage green outfit, a simple button blazer and matching slacks she'd worn for years. Samuel wore his usual denim overalls over a flannel shirt, a worn leather jacket, and a gray baseball cap. "Should we dress up a bit?" Eleanor asked, eyeing her husband's attire. Samuel shrugged. "Why? We're just talking about a watch." "You're right," Eleanor said, slipping her plain wedding band onto her finger, her only jewelry. No need for fuss. Their wealth wasn't obvious. Nothing about them screamed they could buy the entire shopping district without blinking. Samuel's calloused hands and weathered face spoke of hard work, not luxury. Eleanor's simple hairstyle and minimal makeup belonged to a woman who valued practicality. As they drove downtown in Samuel's creaky truck, they chatted about Lucas's upcoming graduation, the new peony bushes Eleanor wanted to plant, and Samuel's latest woodworking project. They didn't think twice about their appearance as they parked and walked to Exquisite Gems. They never cared what others thought. Their lifestyle wasn't about hiding wealth. They just preferred simplicity. They had no idea their unassuming look was about to spark a chain of events that would leave Exquisite Gems staff regretting judging a book by its cover. Exquisite Gems gleamed like a palace of opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms across polished marble floors. Display cases showcased necklaces, rings, and bracelets worth more than most people's homes. The air itself felt expensive, laced with the scent of exclusivity. As Eleanor and Samuel pushed open the heavy glass doors, A security guard in a crisp suit gave them a quick once-over, his expression shifting from wary to dismissive. The message was clear. People like them didn't belong. "Can I help you?" he asked, subtly stepping between them and the displays. "We're here about a custom piece," Eleanor explained politely. The guard hesitated, then nodded toward the reception desk. "Check in there." At the glossy counter, a young woman with flawless makeup looked up, her welcoming smile freezing as she saw them. Her eyes flicked to a colleague, a silent exchange passing between them. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, her voice cooling a few degrees. "No, we didn't know we needed one," Eleanor replied. "We're interested in restoring and customizing an antique watch." The receptionist's manicured fingers tapped her keyboard. "I see. Well, our master jewelers are very busy. Custom work has a long lead time." "We're not in a rush," Samuel said, tone friendly. "It's for our grandson's graduation next weekend, but if it takes longer, that's fine." Her eyebrows arched slightly. "Custom pieces typically start at $25,000. Samuel nodded calmly. "That's fine." The receptionist seemed startled by his casual response, but recovered quickly. "One moment, please." She stepped into a back room, whispering urgently to someone inside. Eleanor and Samuel waited patiently, watching other shoppers. A woman in a designer gown tried on a diamond bracelet. A man in a tailored suit examined cufflinks through a loop. Everyone looked like they'd stepped out of a luxury magazine. Everyone but them. "They think we can't afford anything here," Eleanor whispered, a hint of amusement in her voice. Samuel squeezed her hand. "Let 'em think what they want." The receptionist returned with a middle-aged man in an impeccably tailored suit. His badge read, "Preston Caldwell Manager." "Good afternoon," Preston said, his eyes carrying the same dismissive judgment as the others. "I understand you're interested in our custom services." "Yes," Eleanor replied. "We'd like to restore these pocket watch and maybe add a special touch for our grandson." Samuel pulled out the antique watch and gently placed it on the counter. Preston barely glanced at it. "I see. What budget were you envisioning for this project?" Eleanor and Samuel exchanged a look. "We haven't set a specific limit," Eleanor said. "Whatever it takes to make it special." Preston's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Our artisans are among the world's finest. Their work demands commensurate compensation." "We understand," Samuel said. "Perhaps," Preston suggested, his tone patronizing, "you'd be more comfortable at Time Works on 6th Street. They offer more budget-friendly options." Eleanor's back straightened. "We're here because we understand you're the best." Preston's smile widened. "Indeed we are, which is why our clients are typically prepared for significant investments." By now, a few customers had noticed the exchange. The woman in diamonds whispered to her companion. Two sales associates watched from behind their counters, smirking. "Could you show us some examples of your restoration work?" Eleanor suggested, undeterred. Preston sighed, the sound heavy with inconvenience. "Samantha," he called to a nearby associate, "would you show these folks our vintage collection, entry-level pieces?" Samantha approached reluctantly and led them to a small display case in the corner. "These are our most affordable items," she said, emphasizing affordable like it meant cheap. The entry-level watches still carried 5-figure price tags. Samuel examined them closely, asking thoughtful questions about mechanisms and craftsmanship that Samantha struggled to answer. "Do you have anything with custom gemstone work?" Eleanor inquired. "Those are in our premium collection," Samantha replied curtly. "Can we see them?" Samantha glanced at Preston, who gave a barely perceptible shake of his head. "I'm afraid those are shown by appointment only to qualified buyers." "Qualified buyers?" Samuel echoed. "Yes," Samantha said. lowering her voice conspiratorially. "We need to ensure serious interest before presenting our most exclusive pieces." Eleanor's eyes narrowed slightly. "And how do you determine who's a serious buyer?" Samantha faltered. "Well, typically our premium clients, they tend to—" She trailed off, uncomfortable voicing the store's unspoken policy of judging customers by appearance and pedigree. The tension broke with a clatter as a young sales associate dropped a tray of polishing cloths nearby. All eyes turned to the commotion for a moment, but Eleanor caught Preston giving Samantha a subtle gesture to hush. The message was clear: get rid of them. Preston Caldwell had dealt with window shoppers before, people who wandered in with no intent or means to buy. In his 18 years at Exquisite Gems, he'd developed a knack for spotting who belonged and who didn't. These two definitely didn't. He approached Eleanor and Samuel with practiced composure. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," he said smoothly. "Our restoration services require a substantial deposit, $6,000, non-refundable, just to begin an appraisal." Samuel raised an eyebrow. "That seems steep for an appraisal." "Quality assurance," Preston replied with a dismissive wave. "It keeps our artisans from wasting time on questionable projects." Eleanor's expression remained pleasant, but her eyes cooled. "I see. Is that policy published anywhere?" "I don't recall it being mentioned." Preston's smile tightened. "It's standard practice for our caliber of clientele." By now, a small crowd had gathered to watch. Other customers, security, a few staff. The noonday sun streamed through the windows, glinting off diamonds and crystal, casting an almost theatrical glow on the unfolding scene. "Perhaps," Preston continued, raising his voice slightly for others to hear, "you'd be more comfortable somewhere better suited to your means." A chuckle came from a well-dressed couple nearby. The woman whispered something to her companion, who grinned back. Eleanor stood perfectly still, her dignity intact despite the humiliation. Samuel's weathered hand found hers, squeezing gently. "We just want to restore a family heirloom," Samuel said calmly. "If you're not interested in our business—" "It's not a matter of interest," Preston interrupted, his voice dripping with condescension. "It's a matter of propriety. Exquisite Gems has a reputation to uphold. Our pieces are investments, not trinkets." He glanced pointedly at Eleanor's wooden brooch. "Costume jewelry?" The insult hung in the air. A saleswoman at the counter didn't even try to hide her smirk. The security guard edged closer, anticipating the need to escort them out. "Look," Samuel began, his voice rising slightly. Preston raised a hand. "Please, sir, no need for a scene." He turned to the guard. "Michael, please escort these people out." "You're asking us to leave?" Eleanor asked, her voice steady despite the public shaming. "I'm suggesting it'd be best if you explored options more suited to your situation," Preston said, his eyes flicking to Samuel's worn overalls and Eleanor's simple outfit. "We cater to a certain clientele." The guard stepped forward. "Sir, ma'am, would you come with me?" Eleanor held her ground. "This is discrimination." "This is a private business," Preston countered, "and I have every right to refuse service." A murmur rippled through the gathered crowd. Someone coughed awkwardly. The woman in designer clothes pretended to study a bracelet, but her eyes were glued to the drama. "I'd like to speak to the owner," Eleanor said, her voice firm. Preston laughed. "The owner? Mr. Wentworth wouldn't waste his time on this matter. Now please leave before I call the police." The red velvet rope separating the store's entrance from the main showroom suddenly felt like a barrier between two worlds, luxury and privilege versus ordinary folks who didn't belong. "Come on, Eleanor," Samuel said quietly. "We'll go somewhere else." The guard moved to escort them, but Preston stepped forward instead, clearly relishing his moment of authority. "Allow me," he said, gesturing to the door with exaggerated courtesy. As they walked through the showroom to the exit, Eleanor and Samuel felt every stare, heard every whisper. Preston trailed behind, a triumphant smile playing on his lips. At the door, he couldn't resist a final jab. "Try them all," he suggested loudly. "I hear they're having a sale on costume jewelry this weekend." More laughter followed. A young blonde saleswoman covered her mouth to stifle a giggle. Eleanor paused at the threshold, turning to Preston. Her expression wasn't angry. It was almost pitying. "You made a big mistake today," she said simply. Preston smirked. "The only mistake was you assuming you could afford our services. Good day." The glass door swung shut behind them, leaving Eleanor and Samuel on the sidewalk, the midday sun warming their faces. Samuel's arm slipped around Eleanor's shoulders. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," he said. "We should have gone somewhere else." Eleanor's eyes gleamed, not with tears, but with something like resolve. "No," she said, reaching for her purse. "I think we're exactly where we need to be." She pulled out her phone and pressed a single button. Eleanor's call was brief, but firm. "Edward, it's Eleanor Harper. Yes, at Exquisite Gems downtown. Could you come by and bring Thomas with the documents?" She hung up and turned to Samuel with a faint smile. 5 minutes. Samuel chuckled, shaking his head. "You sure about this? 50 years together and you're still asking me that?" Eleanor's eyes sparkled. "Let's sit on that bench. I want to see their faces." Inside the store, business resumed. Preston regaled a few staff with an embellished version of what had just happened, mimicking Samuel's stance and Eleanor's voice, drawing appreciative laughs. "And then she asked to see the owner," Preston scoffed. "As if Victor Wentworth would waste his time on people who probably can't even afford the polishing cloths we use." Samantha, the young associate, laughed too, but glanced nervously at the door. Was it really okay to throw them out like that? Preston waved off her concern. "Trust me, I've been doing this for 18 years. You can spot time wasters a mile away. Those two probably saved up for months just to walk in here." Outside, a sleek silver Mercedes pulled up to the curb. A uniformed driver opened the door for a distinguished man in his late 60s, dressed in a flawless suit. A younger man with a leather briefcase followed. Together they approached Eleanor and Samuel on the bench. "Mrs. Harper," the older man said with a slight bow. "Mr. Harper, what can we do for you today?" Eleanor stood, smoothing her sage green blazer. "Edward, thank you for coming so quickly. We've had an unexpected situation." Inside the store, the air stilled. Through the glass facade, everyone could see the Mercedes, the driver, and the distinguished guests, now speaking with the couple they'd just humiliated. "Who are they talking to?" Samantha whispered, peering out. Preston squinted. "That's Edward Langley, one of the top financial advisors in the country." His confidence wavered slightly. "What's he doing with them?" The younger man outside opened his briefcase and handed Eleanor documents to review. She nodded, signed something, and passed them to Samuel, who added his signature. "What's going on?" a customer asked. All pretense of shopping stopped as everyone watched the scene unfold. Preston's face lost some color. "I'm not sure." Outside, Eleanor spoke animatedly, pointing at the jewelry store. Edward Langley nodded gravely while the younger man took notes. Then, to everyone's shock, another car pulled up, a Bentley with tinted windows. "That's Victor Wentworth's car," Preston whispered, recognition dawning. "The owner?" Indeed, Victor Wentworth, founder and CEO of Exquisite Gems, stepped out from the back seat. In his late 70s, impeccably dressed, he spotted the group and broke into a wide smile. "Eleanor, Samuel," he called, approaching with outstretched arms. "What a delightful surprise!" The blood drained from Preston's face as he watched his boss embrace the couple he'd just thrown out. Inside, the mood shifted from smug to uneasy. Staff exchanged worried glances. Customers whispered behind their hands. Preston tugged at his collar, suddenly finding it too tight. "Who are these people?" Samantha asked, her voice tight with worry. Before Preston could respond, Eleanor, Samuel, Edward Langley, the young assistant, and Victor Wentworth turned toward the store. Eleanor pointed directly at Preston through the window, and Victor's expression visibly darkened. The group moved toward the entrance. "I think," Preston said, his voice barely audible, "we've made a terrible mistake." The security guard hurried to open the door, his earlier disdain replaced by deference. As the door swung wide, Preston found himself face to face with the couple he'd insulted and his boss, who looked angrier than ever. "Preston," Victor Wentworth said, his voice dangerously low, "we need to talk." The atmosphere in Exquisite Gems had transformed. Where there'd been smirks and whispers, now there was only stunned silence. All eyes were on the unfolding scene. "Victor," Eleanor said graciously, "we didn't expect to see you today." Victor's expression was a mix of delight toward the Harpers and barely contained fury toward his staff. "When Edward called to say you were here, I couldn't believe it. Then he told me what happened." He turned to Preston, whose face had gone from pale to ashen. "Mr. Caldwell, do you have any idea who you just threw out of my store?" Preston swallowed hard. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding." "Indeed there has," Victor agreed, his voice icy. "You just insulted Eleanor and Samuel Harper." The name landed like a bomb in the silent showroom. Samantha gasped audibly. A customer's champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. "Harper," Preston echoed weakly. "As in Harper Green Innovations," Edward Langley confirmed, adjusting his glasses. "Currently valued at approximately $92 billion. A murmur swept through the store. The name Harper Green Innovations was legendary. Their solar technology powered millions of homes, hospitals, and businesses worldwide. Their philanthropy graced countless headlines. But, Preston stammered, his eyes darting from the unassuming couple to his boss. "They don't look like billionaires." Eleanor finished for him, her voice gentle but firm. "And what exactly should billionaires look like, Mr. Caldwell?" Preston had no answer. Samuel, who'd been quiet, spoke up. "We came to restore my grandfather's watch for our grandson." He produced the antique watch again. "It's not worth much in dollars, but it means everything to our family." Victor Wentworth took the watch, examining it with reverence. "It'd be our honor to restore this for you, Samuel. No charge, of course." "We'll pay full price," Eleanor insisted. "We don't want special treatment." Victor smiled sadly. "As I understand it, you received quite the special treatment today, just not the kind anyone would want." The young man with the briefcase stepped forward. "Mrs. Harper, the papers you signed." Yes," Eleanor nodded. "Victor, we just finalized a donation for the Children's Hospital wing, $60 million as discussed." Preston looked like he might faint. "How wonderful," Victor exclaimed. "The Wentworth Harper Pediatric Center will help so many families." "That was our errand today before we stopped here," Eleanor explained. "We decided to make the day about celebrating and getting Lucas's graduation gift sorted." The revelation hit like a thunderbolt. This unassuming couple had just donated $60 million before casually shopping for their grandson. "I think," Victor said, turning to Preston with steel in his voice, "you owe Mr. and Mrs. Harper an apology." Preston's professional veneer collapsed entirely. "I don't know what to say. I'm deeply sorry for how you were treated. I made unforgivable assumptions." "Not just about us," Eleanor replied. "Your attitude suggests you judge all your customers by their appearance. That's no way to treat anyone, regardless of their bank account." Samantha stepped forward, eyes downcast. "I'm sorry too. I was rude and dismissive." Eleanor nodded, accepting the apologies with grace. "We all make mistakes. The key is learning from them." Victor addressed the entire staff, now gathered in a semicircle. "Today is a lesson for us all. This company was built on respect for every person who walks through that door." He glanced at Preston. "Some personnel changes will take effect immediately." He turned to Eleanor and Samuel. "Now, about that watch. I'd love for our master jeweler to take a look, and perhaps you'd like to see some options for Lucas's graduation." Eleanor smiled. "That'd be lovely, Victor." As the staff scrambled to provide top-tier service, Samuel leaned to Eleanor and whispered, "Was all this really necessary?" Eleanor patted his hand. "Not for us, dear, but maybe for the next couple who walks in wearing overalls instead of designer labels." Sometimes the richest people aren't the ones flaunting their status. True character shows in how we treat others regardless of appearance or station. If this story resonated with you, hit the like button and subscribe for more powerful reminders to look beyond the surface. Where are you looking today? Let us know in the comments below. Remember, kindness and respect cost nothing, but their absence can cost everything, as Preston Caldwell learned the hard way. Join us tomorrow for another story that might just change how you see the world.